As I discussed last week, it seems like Snoopy got most of the attention in Peanuts, and to a less extent so did Woodstock. So today I'm going to celebrate the other major characters in the classic comic strips and animated specials, with this countdown of the best child characters in the Peanuts gang. At number 10, we have the youngest entry on this list, a character who could have easily been an unnecessary addition to the Peanuts roster, but managed to have a voice of his own. Rerun. Introduced in 1972 as Lucy and Linus's newest sibling, his very name came from the perception that he would just be another Linus. But Rerun managed to gain his own personality. He was more of an observant character, but still had plenty of funny moments, especially when hanging out with Linus and Lucy. Some of his sweetest times came from his interaction with Snoopy, as the two formed a nice bond, as the famous Beagle seemed to treat him kinder than the other children. While not one of the most popular and famous Peanuts characters, as he didn't really play a major role in many of the television specials, he still managed to carve out a solid place for himself in the comics. At number 9 is certainly the smartest of the Peanuts gang. Marci. Marci is often connected with Peppermint Patty, as they always hang out together, and yes, they are a fantastic pair. However, what sets Marci apart from the others is her intellect. She also seems to look out for everyone. Not just Peppermint Patty, but also Snoopy, as she aids him in indulging his fantasies. She is also one of the few girls who doesn't make that much fun of Charlie Brown. While not the most athletic, Marci shows that's a trait that's not entirely necessary to accomplish a lot. She also more than gets her fair share of zingers during the comic's run. At number 8, we have the optimistic counterpoint to an otherwise down-on-his-luck character. Sally. What makes Charlie Brown's younger sister a likable character is her general attitude, as she happily tries to make her life as fulfilling as possible. Yet her funniest moments are oddly enough when she gets frustrated and angry. She constantly has to deal with teachers and her own brother's problems, and one can see that taking a toll on her. Crush on Linus also gets plenty of laughs, as she is one of a number of characters who doesn't understand his attachment to the security blanket. And who can forget that infamous scene in It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, when she got annoyed at him for making her skip Halloween. Like Rerun, Sally Brown could have been an unneeded tag-along, but she managed to develop into a fully realized character and played an important role in the comic strip. My number 7 pick is a character who is actually one of the most significant creations in the history of comic strips. Franklin. He was always quite ahead of the curve with a general knowledge of events outside of the little neighborhood. Schulz in particular seemed to use the character to give an outside perspective on things and bring new ideas to the other characters. Of course, Franklin was quite revolutionary, as he was introduced during the height of the Civil Rights Movement, and Schulz rightfully scoffed at any newspaper or reader who told him Franklin should not be allowed to attend the school with the other children. There was also the infamous strip, which had Schulz and Peppermint Patty pointing out how shockingly segregated ice hockey is. With Franklin, conversations have been started, and that's certainly a great thing to have, even in the newspaper comic pages. My number 6 pick is certainly the bossiest Peanuts kid, but it's a credit to Schulz that she never became annoying. Lucy. Infamous for her crappy personality, that's a large part of what makes her memorable. As much as we want to see Charlie Brown kick the ball, her constant tormenting of him will never get old. Her psychiatric booth is another excellent running gag, mainly due to the unhelpful advice she gives out. And of course, there's her constant frustration with Linus and his obsession with his blanket and the Great Pumpkin. It's also funny to see her go completely soft whenever she finds herself in Schroeder's company. Her rivalry with Snoopy was also wonderfully developed through the course of the strip. Charles Schulz could have created a character who was completely insufferable, and while there are moments when you wish she would get her comeuppance, seeing her win and come up with some crazy excuse just leads to funnier strips. The Peanuts character in number 5 may be centered around a specific joke, but that doesn't make him any less of a worthy personality. Pigpen. Yes, the main joke for this character is he's completely dirty, and despite his best efforts, he cannot seem to get clean. Yet that's part of its charm. It's hard not to admire his dedication, and the dust cloud that surrounds him is almost a character in its own right. It's interesting seeing the attitude of the other children vary, as sometimes they don't mind his dirtiness, and at other points they're disgusted by it. though there is a sweet series of strips where Peppermint Patty ends up falling for him, and in a way they are kind of meant for each other, aren't they? It goes to show that even if a character is centered around a specific quirk, if you make him likable enough, he can win over any audience. And number 4 is certainly the most philosophical Peanut. Linus. It seems that whenever Charlie Brown is down, Linus is already around to dispense some worthy advice. He almost always has a worthy thing to say in response to one of Charlie's troubles. He is even able to deal with Lucy's negative attitude, usually with a smart response. His devotion to his security blanket is certainly his kryptonite, as we see how any sort of separation affects him. His interactions with Snoopy also led to some great strips, especially in regard to them constantly fighting over the blanket. As I said in the Holiday Specials video, his dedication to the Great Pumpkin actually does deserve to be admired, and it is kind of a fun Halloween tradition. Charlie Brown could not have found a better best friend. My number 3 pick could be argued is the most cultured member of the gang. Schroeder. Like Pigpen, he could be considered a one-note character. However, Schulz succeeded in developing him to become more than a boy who loves playing the piano. His Beethoven obsession is hilariously played, especially when it gets in the way of Lucy trying to gain his attention. His support of Charlie Brown is refreshing, as he is one of the few children to give him a lot of encouragement. However, the main thing I've always liked about Schroeder is his love for classical music. As that rare child who grew up in the 90s who vastly preferred Mozart over the Backstreet Boys, I could relate to him in that regard. Plus, without Schroeder's piano-playing skills, how could the children have learned to dance to the classic Linus and Lucy theme? And number 2 is a Peanut creation who could have been number 1, but it just felt out of character to put him there. Charlie Brown. He's a constant screw-up, but it's hard not to like and root for him to succeed just once. We await when he finally kicks the ball away from Lucy's hands. We long for him to kick a kite and not get it stuck in a tree. And when will the little redhead girl notice him? Like I've said before, he represents us and the constant frustrations we deal with in life. That's why Charles Schulz managed to connect so much with him. And because of all the things that go wrong for him, when Charlie Brown finally gets a little bit of happiness, we feel happy for him. After a while, this could have just looked sad, but Schulz made the comedy work through the entire run of the comic strip's existence. That's why you're the second best Charlie Brown. But I think the number 1 best Peanuts kid is Peppermint Patty. Ever since I started reading Peanuts comic strips when I was younger, she was always my favorite aside from Snoopy. Everything about her personality and interest and general way of looking at life, as a child I always found immensely appealing. The character worked so well, I cannot describe her at the end of just this list. So, join me next week as I devote a character profile to this classic, sandal-wearing Charles Schulz creation who is sometimes called Sir.